MultiVersus might be the most interesting game I've covered on this channel so far, and it's not just because it's a crossover platform fighter. This game has had an extensive alpha and beta period where the devs actively accepted input from the player base, and it's actually technically released while still in a beta state. It's a pretty common release strategy for live service games these days, but not something we've ever really seen for Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon video game history. On top of that, this technically isn't a Cartoon Network game. It's leveraging the entirety of the Warner Bros. Library of IP, and potentially even beyond that. Cartoon Network is a big part of this, and it's a pretty major part in this game currently, but don't be shocked when LeBron James shows up to dunk on your ass instead of stuff like chowder. I'm Brandon, and I'll be your captain for this journey through Cartoon Network video game history. MultiVersus is available for PC and both last gen and current gen Xbox and PlayStation consoles. Strangely, the Switch is absent, which kind of confuses me. There doesn't seem to be any reason why this game couldn't run on it. To nail down when MultiVersus released is a bit chaotic. It's been available in various alpha states for some time, and if you were part of those test periods, you were given early access to the open beta on July 19. But also, if you watched a Twitch streamer with Twitch drops enabled for 60 minutes, you could also get in early. It's a genius way to pump up the amount of people watching and streaming your game. But if you didn't go through all of that, or for some reason thought that leaving a Twitch stream idle for an hour was too much work, the open beta became freely available on July 26. And when I say freely available, I mean it literally. MultiVersus is free to play. Developer Player First Games has created something we have never seen before in Cartoon Network video game history. It's actually their first ever game together as a team, and according to LinkedIn, the team is made up of less than 50 people. It's a big task, but could MultiVersus be a new challenger in the platform fighter arena? Good lord, am I addicted to MultiVersus. Different name, different developer, and different IP present, but don't be mistaken, this is basically a spiritual successor to Punch Time Explosion. Despite Warner Bros. Having access to IP like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, and DC Comics, Cartoon Network is easily the most represented IP in MultiVersus. It's the closest thing us sad sacks will ever get to Punch Time Explosion 2, but honestly, this is better than any sequel to that game could have been. Rather than trying to copy the Smash Bros formula word for word and then acting shocked that the game turns out worse than the OG, MultiVersus does so much to try and set itself apart. It's something that PlayStation All-Stars sort of did half-heartedly by limiting KOs to just special moves, but MultiVersus takes it so much further. The whole game has been built around the 2v2 format. Sure, you can play 1v1s and free-for-alls, but the characters and their abilities have been built around this unique gameplay style. And thankfully, the devs included a really helpful tutorial. There's a basic tutorial you'll go through when you're dropped into the game that gives you a rundown of literally how to play the game, stuff like how to move and attack. But then you have these advanced tutorials which get into the nitty-gritty, and it exposes just how different this game is trying to be compared to your typical framework of a platform fighter. One of the first points of difference you'll encounter is how aerial MultiVersus can be. Every single character can double jump, dodge twice, and then use a special as a recovery move twice before you hit the ground. It radically changes how the game is played. In addition to that, there's no ledge grabbing. Instead, characters will cling to the side of stages, and they can wall jump their way back onto the stage. And to round it out, there's a technique called dodge jumping, where if you time a dodge into a jump correctly, you'll jump faster and further. I've seen some players disliking the movement here and calling the gameplay floaty, but personally, I love this. It feels like such a unique direction to take the game in, and it makes the fights so dynamic. You can get so aggressive with the air movement. I can't see myself ever getting tired of risking it all by chasing an enemy off stage and attempting to knock them out off the screen, despite them being at low damage. Not to mention all of the heart racing moments where you just save yourself from falling to your death by utilizing every single move at your disposal. Oh, and another big aspect of the gameplay is the dodge. This essentially takes the place of a shield that you would usually see in a platform fighter, and again, I think I vastly prefer this. The combination of being able to use it as a pure dodge and as a movement option just opens the gameplay up so much. The actual combat side of things also gets some interesting tweaks. Certain characters will gain armor as a side effect of pulling off specific moves. Doing so depletes your dodge meter. Yeah, probably should have mentioned that was limited so you can't just spam it non-stop. So you won't be able to dodge, but the armor absorbs all incoming hits, allowing you to attack without being interrupted. Once enough damage has been dealt to the armor, it'll disappear, and if a character uses an attack that has a purple visual effect, it'll break through the armor. Sick of people spamming specific attacks in your platform fighters? Well, MultiVersus' attack decay system attempts to solve that. Once the game detects that you've successfully landed a specific move too many times in your recently landed hits, its damage starts to decrease. The game calls this out on screen, so the player knows their damage is going to be lessened. All of these changes are more so tweaks to the traditional Smash formula though. Where I think MultiVersus truly shakes up the genre is the 2v2 format I mentioned. Characters are built from the ground up with this in mind. You'll notice every moveset has attacks and abilities to assist your teammates, like being able to pull them to safety or provide them with a shield. And their attacks interact with each other in unique ways. The OC character, Raindog, has a fire attack that can sit on the stage for a bit, but if you come along as Superman, you can extinguish it with his ice breath. It makes matchups more dynamic. Characters also have class types, and the game tells you how they're designed to be played. For example, Batman is a vertical character, Taz is horizontal, and Shaggy is a hybrid. I don't know whether actually having these designations changes much about the gameplay compared to a Smash or All-Star Brawl, but having them displayed up front to the player makes the game really welcoming. Without having ever touched a character, I can see how they're supposed to be played. The current character classes in the game are Bruiser, Assassin, Tank, Support, and Mage. Of the current characters though, classes are a bit lopsided. There are 5 Bruisers, 3 Assassins, 3 Tanks, 3 Supports, and 2 Mages. And it doesn't look like this is going to be alleviated anytime soon. LeBron James joined the game on official beta launch day, but he's a Bruiser. Then Rick and Morty are both coming to the game sometime within like the first month, with Rick being a Mage and Morty being another Bruiser. Having 7 Bruisers while the next largest class has just 3 reps seems like a bit of an oversight. Something that seems to be inspired by MOBAs is the character perk system. As you play, the characters you use will level up and unlock perks, which give you handy bonuses when you assign them. You get 1 signature perk and then 3 regular perks, with these generally covering stuff like stronger attack power, greater defense, and improved movement. They aren't anything too crazy or game-breaking or game-changing, but they do add another thin layer of strategy to the game. I like that my Finn will be at least slightly different to another player's Finn, depending on which perks we equip. At the end of the day, there are a lot of new mechanics here to wrap your head around. It's not like All-Star Brawl where you can basically just jump in and go for your life if you've had Smash experience before. That's why having a dedicated training mode was crucial. The lab allows you to play as any character in the game, and it has all the bells and whistles you would expect from a training mode in a serious fighter. And having actually played seriously with a good portion of the roster, and facing off against all of them online too, it's quite refreshing to see that none of the characters are just obvious clones of Smash characters. It's so nice that I can't really point to any of the characters and just be like, yep, that's this game's Fox and that's this game's Bowser. I think the new mechanics have largely forced the devs to get super creative. Take Tom and Jerry for example. They're supposed to be a team character like Ice Climbers, and it would have been easy to just make them function as a clone. But instead, they got real unique with how they play. Their whole moveset is based around Tom and Jerry fighting one another, and the fact that they're dealing out damage to opponents is just a byproduct. Characters just have this unique essence to them. This game feels less like a Smash clone and more like its own game. How the 2v2 matches actually operate might be a surprise to you. At the very least, they were a surprise to me. I was expecting this to basically just be a traditional Smash format, where each player has a set amount of stock, or perhaps a deathmatch scenario where the team that gets the most kills within a time limit is the winner. Instead, the devs really leverage the team-based aspects. To put it simply, the first team to get 4 kills wins. Doesn't matter who they're on, just as long as they get 4 kills. I really like this choice as I feel it emphasizes the team-based nature of the game. Those who work as a team are almost always going to triumph over a team that's being heavily carried by one person, or a team that's running around and not really working together. But if you're not jiving with 2v2, you can be a purist and play 1v1s or even free-for-alls, with the latter actually featuring items. Jumping online, I was so relieved to see a mostly flawless experience. Having recently come off the shit show that was Nickelodeon All-Star Brawls Online, this was a godsend. Matches almost always ran smooth, and I've not once had an issue finding matches with servers set to my region. The one issue I have encountered is that there are times where it seems like my controller just isn't working. I feel like this is probably a lag issue, and I only really experienced it in a single play session. But other than that, my online experience has been a joy. I love that the game always prompts you to have a rematch with the team you just faced. This turns your game into a best of 3 series. Not only is it great going back and forth with a competitive team, but it also eliminates the monotonous nature of playing a game, winning or losing, then backing out to the lobby screen and starting all over. Being able to rattle off 3 matches in a row without having to sit around and find another match is brilliant. And I'm also enjoying the way the devs are trying to make the player base less toxic. There are subtle things like the end of game stats screen not showing which players were killed during the match, and then there's the toast system. Every player is given a currency called toast, and after a game you can choose to toast your teammate and opponents if you want to. This grants them 20 gold coins. It's something that more and more online games are adopting, and it's very welcome. So for me, when it comes to the gameplay, MultiVersus is a huge success. But what about the crossover elements? All-Star Brawl, for all intents and purposes, was mechanically one of the best platform fighters I've ever played, but it absolutely whiffed it on celebrating Nickelodeon as a brand. MultiVersus is in a kind of unique spot because, as I mentioned, it isn't just covering Cartoon Network. Overall, the base roster features 17 characters, with LeBron releasing on open beta release day. Of those 17, only 4 characters from 2 different shows are specifically from Cartoon Network. You've got Finn, Jake, Steven, and Garnet. Each character has alternate costumes, and right now you've got Cake and Uncle Shagworth getting representation through these costumes, which sort of bumps up the representation. But if you stretch the definition of what a Cartoon Network character is, you could include Taz, Velma, Bugs, Shaggy, and Tom and Jerry. Then you've got the DC stuff with Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Harley Quinn present. These characters actually lean pretty heavily on their animated designs, most of which have aired on Cartoon Network, so they're kind of in this grey area. And if you want to get real loose with it, the Iron Giant has aired plenty of times on Cartoon Network. At the end of the day, only Arya Stark and Rain Dog have absolutely no connections to the channel. LeBron James did feature in a commercial from like 2005. Bumping up the Cartoon Network connection is Rick and Morty, who will both be joining the game shortly, and looking at the various leaks for upcoming characters, it seems like Cartoon Network is going to feature in a big way in the future of this game. Look away for like the next 30 seconds if you don't want any of these spoiled. Johnny Bravo, Samurai Jack, the Powerpuff Girls, and Ben 10 have all been hinted at, while characters with links to Cartoon Network like Joker, Raven, Marvin the Martian, and the Animaniacs also seem to be coming. It might not technically be a pure Cartoon Network platform fighter, but with this much representation, it might as well be. The stages also lean heavily on Cartoon Network IP. There are 5 stages here that are based on pre-existing IP, with them being based on Batman, Steven Universe, Adventure Time, and Scooby-Doo. And if you're thinking that's a tiny number of stages, well, I agree. It's probably my number 1 gripe with MultiVersus currently. It feels like the game should have launched with 3 or 4 more stages, just to fend off the monotony that can settle in with seeing the same backdrops over and over again. For offline play, all of the game's characters are unlocked, but going online is a different story. This is a live service game first and foremost, so you're going to have to unlock the entire roster, except for Wonder Woman, who is gifted to you upon completing the game's tutorial. To unlock these characters, you have 2 options: purchase them with gold, or purchase them with Gleamium. Gold coins are the game's free currency. You get this from completing matches and getting toasted by other players, and you'll occasionally get some when you level up. Gleamium, on the other hand, is the game's premium currency, which you can spend actual money on if you wish to do so. The first thing that becomes evident when you spend a couple of hours with MultiVersus is that the gold system could use a slight tweak. It feels like it needs just a little bit of a bump in how much gold you're given, because currently it takes a little too long to unlock characters. To unlock a character, it will either cost 1,500 coins, which is for characters that are recommended for beginners, 2,000 coins for standard characters, and then 3,000 coins for characters that are a little more technical and recommended for advanced players to properly utilize them. But if you're using Gleamium, it's a flat 700 cost across the board. Don't expect to be unlocking the entire roster in an instant by purely using the free currency. MultiVersus has been designed to be a slow burn where you're chipping away at the roster. Personally, I'm caught in two minds. On one hand, I wish it was a bit quicker to unlock characters, but I also don't understand the fascination with needing the entire roster. I'm probably only going to ever use Cartoon Network characters, and the occasional character that strikes my fancy like LeBron or any Harry Potter characters. I don't see the need to buy somebody like Arya Stark, and I can't imagine that I'll ever purchase her unless I have a bunch of gold laying around, or I suddenly discover that I love using her offline. The bigger issue is a lack of communication right now. If you logged in when the early access beta started, it would appear that alongside Wonder Woman, you also started with Shaggy, Harley, Jake and Taz. In reality, these characters are just free for the time being. It's a system used by most live service games in this format. However, MultiVersus doesn't tell you that they're free, leading to players believing that they've just unlocked these characters. After the official launch of the beta, the free characters cycled to being Superman, Finn, Garnet and Raindog. With the lack of communication, this has created the potential issue where somebody, assuming that they've unlocked Jake, goes and spends all their coins on other stuff, only to suddenly log in and discover they've completely lost access to him. Even worse, if you have figured out that the characters are on free rotation, the game currently does not give you the option to purchase these characters. The rotating, limited time free character system is a good idea, but the fact that Player First Games isn't communicating this well is a big issue. The devs have acknowledged this and will be adjusting it in an update, but as of making this video, it's a frustrating problem. MultiVersus also has battle passes
I just shit out my ass
to drip feed you different cosmetics, like banners, badges, ring out effects, and costumes. As is standard with this kind of system, there's a free battle pass and then there's a premium battle pass you have to pay for. Just from the mini pre-season battle pass they've been running during early access, it seems like the free battle pass is quite generous in what it gives you compared to other games. Progressing through this battle pass will mostly come via daily and seasonal quests that ask you to complete different objectives, like getting kills with a certain class, or performing unique actions like doing every single one of your recovery moves before hitting the ground. I just wish completing these quests also granted you gold like basically every other game with a battle pass does. As it stands, it feels like the game is pushing you towards spending actual money just a little too hard. It's a free-to-play game, so obviously they have to cover their costs somehow, but be a smidge less in your face about it maybe. And the last thing I want to touch on is the presentation. Visually, I think all of the characters mesh well here. It's not an easy task to take real-life people, live-action characters, and a bunch of different animation styles, and bring them together in a single game without it all looking weird. But I can't say I've noticed anything that really stands out as being poor. The real star of the presentation is the voice acting though. I've made it clear before that voice acting doesn't really bother me in games like this or Nick Kart Races, and that's because generally the lines being said are very generic. But MultiVersus not only has a stellar voice cast, but there are so many lines of dialogue that actually reference the other characters you're fighting with or against.
You're hopeless, Shaggy.
That's Superman. He would look feeble next to the mountain.
That's what Scooby backs.
Let's do ooh proud.
That's hate Krypton.
This really takes things up a notch, and yeah, it actually improved my enjoyment of the game. Personally, this is the standard for voice acting in a game like this now. Nickelodeon Kart Racers 3 is promising voice acting, but if it's just super generic lines, then I'm going to be pretty let down after playing MultiVersus. On top of all that, the game also has packs you can purchase that change the voice of the game's announcer to the character of your choosing.
Choose your character!
The lines for this are kind of limited and repetitive, but having this option is nice rather than just sticking with a generic announcer the entire time. It's yet another small touch that helps elevate MultiVersus into being a great package.
Receiving incoming transmission.
Target line.
I'm not exaggerating, MultiVersus might be my favourite platform fighter ever. I've fallen in love with all of the unique aspects they've brought to the genre, to the point where I look at Smash and think, maybe that franchise can learn a thing or two from the new kid on the block. It's a joy to play, the crossover elements are superb, and Cartoon Network is getting solid representation despite the devs being able to pull from so many different IPs. There's also so much to do here that you'll barely even notice that there are no single player modes other than offline fights. You don't even have an arcade mode here, although it seems like something along these lines is planned for a future update. But the live service model has been crafted so well that it not being here right now hasn't affected my enjoyment. There's always some sort of challenge or goal to focus on here, in conjunction with winning matches. And seeing the incredible response to the game upon launch, I'm optimistic about the future of MultiVersus. I'm expecting this to be supported for a long time, the way Fall Guys, Rocket League or Fortnite have. Go out and play this game, it's literally free, so there's nothing stopping you. You really won't regret it. Next time, we'll be jumping back over to Nickelodeon video game history to look at SpongeBob the Yellow Avenger. This is a pretty unique release in that it was made for the Nintendo DS and the PlayStation Portable. SpongeBob games have been on a bit of a roll in this period of Nickelodeon video game history, so hopefully this handheld exclusive that I'm not too familiar with can blow me away. To make sure you don't miss that video or any of my upcoming reviews, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And to stay up to date with everything that's happening with the channel, jump over to Twitter and give me a follow.